State of Liquid are at, that could be where they pick up the points. But again, I said it's just going to be really, really difficult for them.
If you were a professional Siege player, Demo.
Okay, I'm there. Yes, I'm there. I'm there. I'm there.
You've dreamt the streamer many, many times, and you had just come through into playing competitive Rainbow Six Siege. Would you want to have these games at the start of the season against the FaZe and WSM, or would you want them at the end, do you think?
I think you want the difficult games out of the way. I think you do. And you want to try and start hitting a bit of form midway through against the games that, on paper, should be winnable. I think that's the best way to put it. I mean, even, I don't know if you watched NAL last night. Fabian, I think he was saying how, they lost to DZ on the Thursday, but they were kind of glad that they got, the problems, discovered early on in the season, and then they can start building momentum as they go into playoffs. I think that kind of hits the nail on the head.
Well, away we go into it in just a second. It's the greatest swapping there. Carsol's army, Blackbeard and Monty, double shields, and then 2 restrictive defensive ops on towards Cafe. Yeah, I don't think there's anything outstandingly surprising here about the sort of band selection. If you're looking towards the approach on towards Cafe, especially towards the sort of top floor, regardless of whether it's the site or most often isn't nowadays, just the ability to keep people out of piano, stop people being a bit reactive and active on trying to hold and push back in. It just makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, piano's the heart and soul of this map, I feel. Everything really seems to kind of come through that part of the map. Every round, it feels as though attackers have to take control of that. So, yeah, taking out the Azami and the Castle, 2 very strong operators. Again, Cafe, as much as what maybe the desk was speaking about, saying how, Cafe, defender-sided, this is really good for Black Dragon starting the defense. I don't know if I wholeheartedly agree with that, because I do feel that the attackers have a lot of things going for them as well. I think Windows, as a whole, are just really, really, really strong. And really, it's this map and what maybe Consulate are like really the 2 window maps we would see. There's not a massive amount of kind of repelling window game that we see in any of the other maps, so I think that's always a strong suit that the attackers can kind of fall into, as you sit in the windows, play those strong outplayers with DMRs. You can just shred through the soft walls straight into these long deep positions into the bomb sites. Really make it restricted for the defenders. So yeah, I don't know. I think you certainly could make the argument of attackers have as much going for them as you can.
Well, we are off and we are in. We are going to start in, I'm going to be honest, this is very specific towards a lot of people living through the heat wave right now, in the cool, cold kitchen. And I could really do with a bit of... How hot is it where you are? Warm? 22. People are always like, oh, that's not that hot. I live in here. We're not built for this. Our buildings are not built for this. But that's a whole other rant that I'll get into, because these buildings are built to be broken into. They're getting themselves a bit of a stretch and extension here towards the bottom of white. As I said before, you'll have a lot of active sort of holds around this map itself. You want to try and peel yourself up towards the top or back and back, which is why if you look over towards ENX's loadout, that is a let's get vert and let's make sure that if one of our vert dies, we still have vert and then a little bit more vert.
And even with the shield bans, we've got the Fuse Shield, which has been shown last week also. Fuse Shield still works the same way as any other shields. You just don't get the added, kind of benefit. Monty has the extended shield. Blackbeard, obviously, with the way his shield works. Flitz has the flash. Fuse, just the shield. Nothing special about it. Very basic from him. But of course, then you get the gadget with it, which I'm not too sold on. I think it's an okay gadget, but again, very situational in terms of how it gets used. You made a great point about the verticality. You're dealing with Kitchen, a lot of verticality. You really need to try and root out those defenders, make it so they can no longer play into the bomb site, and that really opens things up to try and initiate that diffuser, knowing that no one's in sight to try and stop you. But if you are going for the vertical take, you need to then have a good squad of taken positions, such as VIP and Restaurant.
It's been pretty quick, the pressure above, but it's actually getting it to capitalize. That's going to prove to be the problem here. They've not really been given an arm to pull on or a thread to see if it can unravel at this point. They're still holding themselves here. Around the bottom of the white stairs, ready to swing out if need be. Time to waste and time to play around it with the cover from the bar that almost drifted into an engagement. Tipperary is on their phone currently, and you're assuming that they'll get a bit of a heads up as soon as the swing comes round, trusting that Muzi had the cover. But there is the first rare caught out. The impact over the top buys themselves the chance to run out of coat and get themselves back in towards Bakery. But you can see the charges are coming. The drop down of the going to say the freezer. The drop down on towards the freezer hatch as Tubarow's just going to keep them chilled out for now. Really get a good shove here from ENX's approach, Demo.
Yeah, I mean, the top can only buy so much. You know, maybe 20 seconds is what you can get with those canisters. So eventually the hatch will be opened up. But like I said, VIP and restaurant, it's an area that you need to take if you want to go for a pretty default freezer attack, which is what ENX had went for. So yeah, it has to be Hornet. That's who they have to try and take out. And here comes the shield. And hey, what can you do against that? Not a lot.
Ooh, but the shotgun can do something. And there's the cover. Flash tree pushes out. There's a couple of trades that come through as the ENX tried to exploit their way on towards the site. Now they still have the Goyo canisters, the smoke canisters, and they have just been able to freeze them out on the last step. But it is just Flash Street left and 20 seconds here for ENX to reevaluate themselves, reassess, and just take this on contact. There's the quad. There is the ace! Flastry! They say your performances keep on improving, and what a way to punctuate the statement of the desk.
Well, the submissions for play of the day have been closed.
Sexy King's left the game.
It's finished.
I mean,
my God!
Okay, it's fantastic as any ace clutch is, but you do have to ask questions, Demo. The three of them just sent it from the same section. As I said, they had 20 seconds. It's panicky, but that's time. And they just... I mean...
Right. Let's have a go at trying to... Let's have a go at
trying to break it down. We've got time, as I assume we'll be back in...
We'll have a crack. Right. So obviously, pretty default attack from ENX. You know, let's get that out the way first. Verticality, all that. They've done that. Yep, good. EP restaurant, that's what they were after. All good. Flash Street made a bit of a I gotta do something play. You know, and he was stuck inside of the bomb chassis, you know, over towards the sinks. And he thought, right, I know what's coming. It's very obvious what ENX are going to do. And he thinks, right, I'm going to swing the hatch, kill the guy in the hatch, which he did. And then he was there to support Stabaro and kill that fuse. Okay, first of all, makes a great play. You think, wow, that's really upset them. ENX, though, still pick up their other kills around the map because all loose players were pushed off of site into the areas where the verticality was. You think about the long corridor over towards Red, it was all opened up. You had that backstab coming in as well to eliminate the guy instead of VIP. So yeah, everything was working well. A 1v3, you think, okay, good. Flash 3, you know, is he going to make this? Probably not. The Goyos came in big, stopped them getting in towards Freezer. But like you mentioned, all three of them gripping up to one door is insane. Absolutely insane. There was a guy walking down red stairs. I'm pretty sure that guy could have just went and take control of Bakery, and they could have planted in towards the other bomb site. They had about 15 seconds left, didn't they? So they could have made that long rotate. They could have. So it was just a case of somebody called, let's play for the kill. And then the guy just pulls a clutch out of his arse, you know, just out of nowhere. You can't prep for that. And individual brilliance is something that will always define a game. You know, it's up to the players how they play in the server. It's all well and good having these strategies on paper. The guy's still got to go in there and do the job. And I think that's around there that is going to really sting for ENX. But, I mean, God, that guy's insane. You know, Flash rate, unbelievable.
I think it's one of the things that I was sort of going to highlight towards. We've got a bit of a head-to-head comparison here of how the players have set themselves in. And Boxero, to be fair, I think he got 2 kills himself. Makina was a bit shut out earlier on in towards that. But the way ENX were approaching it, I really liked how quick they were to get through the top floor. I really liked how quick they were to start biting their way across the sort of middle of the floor as well. As I said, great coverage. They were shepherding the players. They had all the picks. They had everything going for them in a decent amount of time as well. And for me, I'm sat there entirely sort of objectively going, this is going to be a really good morale boost for a team that has struggled in the opening 2 play days to come back in at the start of the next week and just absolutely smash that first round. What is better than going, yeah, we've got this. And then that happens, and that is painful. That's like, with all the other storylines of what's happened to this team, and yeah, they can obviously still bite back. It's round 1, but we have to think of the comparison of how it is in the bigger picture. It's not going to do them any wonders for that confidence that needs to be rebuilt.
Mm-hmm. You think, coming into this new week, don't forget about last week. Not really worried about that. Let's focus on today. And you go in and you set up really nicely for your first attack, and that happens, and you almost think, for the players in ENX, what can we do? Like this is our luck. Is the season cursed at this stage? We can't do anything.
Well, they seem happy enough.
Oh dear,
which is good, because you want them. You never want people to struggle in the game. You want people to be able to set themselves up, and obviously we can see that they seem to be, at least in some aspect of the game, droning out, and we're going to follow them into it now. But yeah, false start, rough start, fine. Let's grow from it, and mistakes happen. And an ace clutch is nothing that is, hopefully consistent. If there's a second ace clutch, then we really need to start looking at some other things. But the mistake has been made. Brush it off and rebuild here on towards the top floor. Less a scene nowadays, but Black Dragons, they've got a feeling for it.
Did you see as well, they popped the smoke canister over towards the flanks as well?
Did.
Yeah. Remember you asked me this on Tuesday?
I did.
About these. And I mean, this is what I mean. It's some of them are really strong. Like if you think about, final 30 seconds or so, an attacker walking up white stairs. I mean, white stairs is difficult because you can get swung from your planks or from the pixel door. So having, that smoke canister would be great for those situations. So obviously the defenders will take that off the board.
Now, obviously, the Clash with their new changes, if you are unfamiliar with some of the CJX revolutionary features, well, that was one of them we talked about before, and Clash is another one. You can now sort of set the shield as a deployable, put it onto what was the classic pixel swing, just in the corner piano towards Cigar, and now they can actually just relinquish it. Put their focus with their gun towards white stairs, they give themselves some cover, they can activate the electricity if they need to buy themselves a second at a time, and gives them a little bit more wiggle room on what has been a very classic power position across the game, across the years, and across the metas. Here, be a much slower entry because, well, instead of the previous hold and pretty much every single take you've got to do as the attackers onto this map, you are just going to cut your way directly in. Hornet does find the first, and Clash goes a little bit of an adventure to pull away from the grenades. Very well played, and a big use of utility there. That's both the frags gone. That is all of Zephia's kit gone as well. And they haven't really netted anything from it, Demo.
Yeah, this is a really strong position for the Clash. As you know, Zofia, good counter. Send the impacts in, make the shield, move away from her body so it opens her up. However, if you stand in front of one of the sofas inside, you can't see the legs of the Clash. So it's a really strong position just because of the amount of clutter that's inside of that room. And yeah, there's not much really that ENX can do against this. It's crazy. Clash at the moment is just top tier. If you don't ban her, you're asking for trouble. And that's sadly what has happened for them.
Are they just going to send it? They've just... Yeah, they're just throwing themselves in, and Makina pops out and throws them right back out. They're trying to cut their way across. They realized things weren't working. Demo, and they went with plan B, which was cover the, core of the site itself, and it's just not gone very well. It's quickly over there, and, you put it very well there. Plan A was to get control of Piano and get rid of the Clash. Clash was so ready for it. And at that point, your plan B options with what had been taken out of them and what utility they had left, they thought, well, let's just try and cover with the Capital bolts, get the drop in. You couldn't really take Black Dragons by surprise. 2-0.
Yeah, just Clash. Do we have to say much more? We just put an asterisk on the round that says Clash was available.
Clash was here. Protect your bombs from me. So you think she's quite powerful right now?
Oh,
tell me more.
How long do we have?
Well, it depends. I mean, this could be a quick game.
the first time we're hoping for a rehost, just so we can have a chat.
She's in a good position right now.
She should be banned during the next round. She should be banned. If
well,
not,
the thing, I mean, they haven't immediately gone back to her. There is still situations, right? And obviously, they're a team that likes to have themselves up with the guns. It's a team that isn't afraid of confrontation against ENX. I think if they were to sort of flip the coin, Black Dragons would probably feel confident taking these engagements. But at the same time, it's a sort of twist in the turn of the dice. We go to Reading Room and Fireplace this time around. Get ourselves a bit cut in the middle floor, and as I said, you will expect them to go to the top, try and cut people off. Now, how much of a hold do Black Dragons want to do? Because the first round, it was very speedy from ENX to just lock out all of that real estate.
Yeah. Really heavy util lineup from ENX. No hard breach at all. You've got 6 flashbangs, you've got 4 grenades, you've got the Grims, you've got the air jabs also, Deimos tracks. You've got a lot of stuff to really work with at your disposal. And on the side of Black Dragons, they've got a Wamai, and that's it. Wamai to take on all of that util, that ain't gonna slide. So, Black Dragons really need to try and play together and don't get caught out just, individuals where they can be rimmed out and naded and flash and demo strike all at the same time. They just pick you off one by one. So trades are really, real important for Black Dragons in this round specifically.
Well, there hasn't been a true confrontation yet. Rez obviously taken a bite of damage, but been able to get themselves to some sense of freedom. As he said, with the operators that they've brought, it's going to be a lot of chance of aggression. The Nomad and the Deimos to control the space from the back end and the front end, really, but we haven't really got the drive of it as of yet. All the tracks available to be utilized, but it's when they get the confidence to go for the pinch. They've got a player. Oh, no, they don't. Rare! Gets the C4 and gets the opening against Boxera. Again, those opening 2 kills were on the first round, and since then, that player that we were watching for has been shut out both times, Demo.
Yeah. Yeah, not good. Losing that player who would apply a lot of the window pressure towards that part of the map, over towards Cocktail, over towards White. It's gone, but luckily for ENX, Black Dragons thought, right, we got our kill. Let's just fall back. Let's not give them any picks. Let's make it really, really difficult. Maybe they could try and play the retake also, because at the moment you look at the position Flasher's in, could take a slip up Red. Is there an air jab though? That's the question. Did she get that utility place before she was picked off?
I think it's that sort of awkward situation here where I don't know if they did. There's track on towards Deimos. They have the drone, and was that the air jab or just a drone?
Yeah, he shot it. Yeah, no, he shot the air jab.
Okay,
I'm pretty sure.
Well, very easy to get control of the space, and that's that sort of trade-off, that risk of having that cover roll also end up be the one in the first engagement. Sure, you didn't expect the window, but they almost got it down. They are going for the plant here, but Sexy Cake is down on the cover of Pillar. So the Deimos just feeds himself to the engagement. There's 2. It's a post plant, but a 4 versus 2, and they've got the player stuck in the corner. They go around for the pre-fire. It's already covered from somewhere else, and now nobody is left once again. And I mean, it was a good idea, but ENX did not realize Black Dragons were watching them at every step of the way.
Yeah, they played retake. They thought, right, let's roam. They got that first pick. Let's not give them anything. Let's flee down to the basement area. Let's just sit, play really, really passive, allow them to formulate some kind of attack, and then you use those staircases, you use those flanking avenues just to completely punish ENX. So Black Dragons, again, understanding the map really, really well. Really impressed with this team, the way that they've just kind of operated throughout the past play days. There's the flashbang. Good. So maybe they have a chance to win in the top floor this time, which will be nice to see. Also, Dokkaebi ban coming in from the defense. Again, Dokkaebi, I feel, is somewhat of a crutch operator for some teams, where if you're really lacking the droning, that's, your Dokkaebi could come in to try and assist you with that. If you actually looked at, the kind of, as the round ended, there was only 1 drone remaining out of the 10 on the attacker side. So drones have just been getting shot everywhere.
From what was an ace clutch at the start to what has been 2 differently paced rounds, but I think it's fair to call it 2 Black Dragons in control the full way round. And obviously, you know, we've had comments about how the attack or the defense rate of ENX team and Black Dragons have sort of favored over the previous couple of playdays, but at this point, I think it's much more a weight of the opponents. Obviously, it was an overtime loss to NIP, which Black Dragons had, which they weren't able to, you know, get any attacks on the go. But I think it's just a different sort of class of this team. They have all of that to build up. ENX team, who have struggled on the attack, have also struggled on the defense. You know, they've won 3 rounds over the first 2 maps on either of the halves. It's a rough start. There's no two ways about it. But here it's just still just trying to find that way, and I can't help but think if that first round had gone into their favor, if we'd have a bit more of that sort of awareness here. But will they have a change? Similar, if not exactly the same lineup. So we can have a look over towards their attack on the approach. They're still going for the pace. I mean, it wasn't broken, so I don't think they need to fix it. Just the landing.
Yeah, I think gonna be Black Dragons will probably change up their approach. I think they kind of gave ENX way too much time and control of that mid floor, so I would like to see them try and engage the enemy during that kind of mid floor takeover. So I want to see them just take it to ENX, especially whenever the gun skill's with them. You know, it's not as if Black Dragons should be fearful per se of ENX. You know, they've kind of outgunned them at every mark that they can. Yeah, same lineup again in terms of the attacks, verticality, fuse shield coming in once more. So pretty run-of-the-mill stuff for your basement, what we expect to see. But again, there's not much we can really read into Fluke, just because it was based on a bit of magic from Flashtree. You know, that's how they lost this round the last time.
I think that's it. And, you know, as I said, you can't always... There's a couple of things that you just cannot account for. A player on their day and then a player popping off like that. And that was just one of those moments. That was the opposite of one of those moments.
Still off it. No, he didn't.
He went to try and get the second follow-up. That does get rid of the Goyo, and that was a deciding factor later on. As I said, in the final 20 seconds, there was still a lot of utility they still had left to play with, and we were around this mark where the first kill started to come through as well. So ENX team, they're still on a good pace here, and well, the perspective is one that I can't see. I don't know if you can.
No, I think I'm trying to use the Force, see if I can look into what happens, but I'm seeing nothing.
What's your guess? I think we're going to come back and there's going to be 5 players still standing. Drum roll, please!
Please, please.
It was not.
I retire.
It was not a Black Dragons round.
My credibility's out the window.
Off-screen, ENX team were able to win down on Kitchen. Now, they almost won in the very first round. They didn't. They have been able to bounce back. But it takes more than one kitchen to make a feast. Well, no, it takes one kitchen to make a feast. You can make pretty much anything in a kitchen. It takes more than one moment in kitchen to make a feast. And they got to try and make things happen elsewhere. Now, the bans, though, we can talk about those a little bit. Clash and Jokerbeat join the removed operators for the last 2 rounds.
Yeah, and then this is where the Clash ban should be really strong for them on this bomb site on the top floor. Clash was the sole reason why this attack just didn't really get to work. So you would like to expect that, you know, this operator now being out of the way, Piano, which we like to mention is the kind of heart and soul of the bomb site, really shouldn't have too many issues now with it. So yeah, I think taking Piano is going to be that key for ENX. They've got, again, plenty of util. You've got the Grim coming in. You've got plenty of nades as well. Try and rip players out of some of those strong positions in towards Cigar Shop, maybe over towards Pixel. So, yeah, plenty of options for them. Also, another thing, the double air jabs and gridlocks. You've got the 2 flank protection. The air jabs are going to be used primarily for the window jump outs, and then you're going to use the gridlocks for the stairs. So it just covers... It gives yourself more options. You have a lot more util that you can, you know, oh, I have to use an air jab now on this staircase, which means I don't have it for this window. You cover both grounds now because of that.
There is a moment, obviously, the fact that we could not see the round, as we don't really get a taste of how it went, because also the stats have all been reset. It could have been a big pop-off round, it could have been whatever. But we'll see if they get a bit of a better take here towards the top. This will be the start of the read, and it is better. Now, without the clash, they cannot do the drifting back and forth, and Boxera is able to get the first off the board. It is a massive turnaround with previous comparisons, and at this point, You assume here that ENX can start to really shepherd the end of the landing. Flastry takes a bit of a blow there. What's the cocktail side? They're still tucked in. A minute 10 though, a lot of time here for ENX, and well, questionable pockets of utility. Actually, they've still got at least a grenade, which they were tempted to start to play on the back of the flashes, you assume here, but they're going right into the perfect person to catch them. Hornet doesn't care. Oh, I was going to say when he swings on, but there's two more for ENX. Swung around onto the back of the player on white, but they'll know exactly where they are, and they are easy to catch out here. Rare does win against Boxera, and that was the player on white windows. That was the player behind them. So now Flastry has a very important job. If he can get the first take here, suddenly he can have things leveled up. But look, they've had to rotate the Grim round behind them. They need to try and get the reveal on where Flastry is. Rare is trying to creep his way up towards the core of this, so if they move across the middle, he'll be caught out, but there is Nil getting the
cake over towards the long white window. Again, covers off that player over towards Planks, can immediately get himself in towards white. You know, obviously Nomad swinging in through the Heaven Repel, so yeah, windows in that top floor, big issue. You can see without the clash how much easier it was just to take that piano. You know, it was really simple. Not a lot they could do. They attempted, you know, the classic pixel shield into a Wamai. That was dealt with, you know, with the amount of utility they had. They had impact. EMPs disable the Wamai discs. In goes the nades. Blows that up. Yeah, just really good execute. I think maybe Black Dragons, if I was to be a little bit cynical, there are still some pretty strong operators available to them. Like Mira is still up. Mira is great for that top floor. Why is that something maybe they didn't look at?
In their first play day, ENX team got 1 round. In their second, 2. Here, on the drive of how things have gone the past 2 rounds, they could be doing the best they've ever done because, well, 3 on their attack on Cafe with how attacks have sort of shaped up for them regardless of the stats. This has been their rockier, tougher side. They will have so much momentum to build into here. Black Dragons towards a Glaz who's desperate for a fight on the window, but it's Muzi that locks out Angel, and they're forced away from VIP. They do catch one and then just tuck themselves in the corner. The Tubarao demo is not risking anything for all this utility thrown at him.
No, he just doesn't need to move his feet. His team are in great positions just to hold him, you know, protect him. They're covering off that, you know, the double window jump in. All Hornet needs to do is just look one way. Just look towards your own double doorway. Everyone else can cover the rest. You know, that's exactly what has happened here. So yeah, all credit Black Dragons. They've seen the attempted, I won't say rush because it was within, you know, the first minute or so of the round, onto this player inside a VIP and restaurant. Oh. They put in the utility really well. You know, smokes and C4 obviously working well for them this round. So yeah, I mean, ENX, you've kind of went all in, and sadly it hasn't landed on your number.
It brings me a little bit back to round 2, where we talked about how there was a huge utility dump. They tried to go for this play, it didn't work, and then suddenly you're left with nothing, and you'll just have to try and fight your way in. Florio does get one. He pops one of their 2 remaining Bs over the top to try and get the reveal on Flastry, maybe force them slightly further back or into an engagement in their favor, but it's well watched. And that leaves a single person to be wed. But unfortunately, I don't think they're quite happy for the ceremony yet. Boxera pulls themselves further away. They can feel their time is almost done. Like Dragons, they're sort of tapping the watch. They're saying, let's just get to the second half here. It's a 4-2. Live with it. And, well, now they finally get that joy. Whoa, hello everyone, and welcome back yet again. Unfortunately, there is obviously some internet problems, but we are finding ourselves theoretically on the other side of them now from the studio side, and it should be smoother sailing. Thank you everyone for bearing with us. Now, demo, what were we up to in this game? Give us a vibe check on Black Dragons vs ENX so far, please.
It's been so long. Been many moons since we last were here.
Yeah.
I think I can vaguely remember. I've actually got the crystal ball in front of me, and I can actually show the past.
Tim's head. Sorry, I had to. I'm sorry. I had to.
It's not Tim. Going after Dez is one thing, not Tim.
All right. Thank you.
You've crossed the line. Is there? You've crossed the line.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
You better, but you just yeah. Okay. So more or less, Black Dragons 4-2 half. They had a massive moment in the first round. It was a 1v5 clutch coming in from Flash Tree. So ENX, probably kicking themselves thinking we could have had a lot better of a chance here going into it. But still, they took a 4-2 half. Switch over the defense. We didn't get a chance to see the round, Fluke. But Black Dragons were able to take the first attack. And at the moment, they lead 5-2.
So, this lineup on the bottom right brings me a bit of the heart palpitations, a bit of the fear, but it's sort of how well it's utilized, right? It gives yourself a bit of a strong smash towards it. You've always got the combination of the Ying and the Dokkaebi. You can get yourselves in and put a bit of pressure on. If you're going for hard breach, it's not the paciest. The Hibana will always illuminate more of a specific plan. It sounds like that specific plan could potentially be coming up from underneath. At this point, though, I think they're just trying to fish out some of these routes, open up some of these angles, prepare themselves to cut off players. There's the great utilization of the Hibana pellets on towards the castle. Just get those all popped off and ripped off at the same time without having to stack and blow and stack and blow and stack and blow. It's a nice way of doing it, unless you're up against, actually, Pengu, who has a really neat castle trick that he often deploys.
Do you want to share with the class what that is?
When the Hibana pellets are on it, he just rips the castle down and then puts it back up.
Just put it back up, yeah.
So it just eats the pellets. Sorry, Pengu, I'm giving a bit of your game away there.
Until the time he tries and gets shot in the head, but,
Yeah.
Of course. Look, Black Dragons, I've said before, tempo. The way that they can control the pace of their game, they just slowly work with what they have. At the moment, they've been able to clear away a majority of the defenders towards the top floor. So that does allow them the access of now being able to move in and having access to an area such as Pillar, for example, which, as we know, these mid floors is a pretty high traffic area. So having control of that is good for the attackers, and again gives them a late opportunity to drop into the second floor as well from that position if needed. But it is going to be all about getting this hatch open over towards Train. You open up that hatch, it will split the bomb sites in two. But don't forget though, Fluke, that hatch, even if you drop down it in towards Train Museum, you can't plant there. You still have to try and work through into the other two bomb sites. This is why this bomb site's pretty unique in that characteristic.
Okay, the calls came out, the combination with the Candelas, but can they get a body on the back of it? They know somebody is around Laundry because they heard them and they've gone for the pinch, but Angel has the cover on towards Muzi and locks down White Stairs. There's a C4 finding Makina, and as they push their way up, they're knocked right the way back down. They do finally find the Laundry player, but at this point, getting the pickup, getting the kit back up, puts them into the 4 versus 3. All fully stacked here on towards the White Stairs side and the combination of Library, but it feels like with 20 seconds, she's going to have to turn to a mad dash. The first fight here is a very important one, but it's not going to go their way either way around. The shotgun perfectly placed, and a C4 isn't quite the end. Does get to Barao, but with 10 seconds, a 1 versus 3, and no kit to plant for the Troubles, I think we're going to see our third ENX team round here.
Angels just sat on the stairs. Nobody really dealing with him. All too well from the side of Black Dragons. The idea was to have the Ying push down White along with the Dokkaebi call, and if somebody was in that position, they would have been taken out. Now, I don't know if he was stood on a mute jammer or not, because then that obviously would have blocked the Dokkaebi call coming out, but it did feel as though that nobody really knew that he was going to be there. That's what it felt like a little bit. Did the Ying maybe think, oh, there's a guy White Stairs, here's the Dokkaebi call, but then he didn't hear a call, so naturally he would assume, oh, that guy's ran away. But he didn't. I don't know. I need to see the characteristics of. I need to see the details. If they did have a mute jammer or not. But again, it would have been an option for them. But I would say that overall for Black Dragons, they probably approached that in a way teams usually don't want to go for that attack on that bomb site. There was very little vertical play. Didn't open up the hatch. They didn't put any pressure towards the actual bomb site players at all. You know, it never really got going for them, it felt.
5-3 here, Black Dragons, and, you know, they're not out of the woods yet. ENX team have beaten any of their previous records on the previous 2 play days to get themselves their 3rd round. Can they start to drive this a little bit deeper against an opponent that, let's be honest, Black Dragons was fighting towards the top? ENX team, if they can start to make this one swing into their favor, if they can especially do it close to the end, they can bring themselves into a really strong idea of, okay, maybe we can make this happen. Maybe we can get out of the bottom 4. It's a great game to potentially have at the start of the comeback on a team that's setting their own pace. The reads towards the hold here on the top floor again, the play around the castle. It's a consistency because it's been allowed to be, but the choice of that and the Azami and the glass, you said, it is a better removal. You're pretty confident you know where those castles are going to play, and here's one that I talked about before. This position, it's backed up by obviously the laser gates, but it's still not impossible, Demo. You'll have prepared for this.
Yeah, again, would have all been theory crafted. So I wouldn't say there's much that's really going to catch them by surprise. And util from both the attackers and defenders are going to be traded. One explosive hit for the defense, and it takes out the Lion. And the nades that were tossed in towards Bathroom did not hit their mark. So at the moment, ENX are on top of things. No trade coming in from the side of Black Dragons. Again, that's some barricades. Will now be dealt with by the Ash, and it forces Florio out of that position. And you can see very swiftly now for ENX, they will try and dart back into the safety of those reinforced walls still scattered about the bomb site.
Yeah, you can see Hornet really wanted to catch the players, trying to turn tail, but look at the time that they've been able to waste here, Demo. Just from having that set up, it's the extension in towards Cigar and shot, but Hornet finally at least finds the sting to one of their approaches here and takes one back, but the rotate is coming out from underneath. Saxicate is going on a little bit of an adventure and doesn't feel contested by it. It's actually going to reevaluate the position, but the barbed wire will give some of the ground away, instead stay tucked, and just saw the player turn tail and head back down, wants to go for the swing immediately on towards that position, but it's just baiting attention because at this point, that east hold, those windows, cannot be fully and fervently watched. There needs to be a drive. It's happening here on towards Pixel, and Rare does find it. And at this point, it's the pressure that can be applied by Black Dragons on towards the site itself, ignoring Sexy Cake's shenanigans underneath, Demo.
Oh, almost takes out the player in the window, but look at the HP from 3 players of Black Dragons. They are pretty low, but they're still winning the engagement, so let aside that. Sexy Cake on the flank. Oh no, misses the opportunity. Somehow darts in the piano, misses that guy also. Oh, the shotgun and the knife comes out. Sexy Cake had an absolute nightmare, but his teammates getting stuck in. It's a trade because of that. ENX somehow win. What the hell is going on?
What? Okay, wait. What was... Okay, hang on. I am flabbergasted. My flabbers are gasted, Demo. What was the end of that round? Let's just take it back piece by piece, shall we? Sexy Cake is doing problems underneath, drawing attention. It's working. Then they say, this is going to work. They go for the push. Sexy Cake goes on the flank, which is entirely the right option to do. Misses the first fight, misses the second fight, survives both, then gets knifed. But it's drawn those 2 players out of the position in the focus, all to run themselves into what's a shotgun gauntlet. I'm lost.
Was that a 1v4? I think it was.
Yes.
It is almost an exact replica of what happened in the first round. One guy just sat, and just this onslaught of just these hordes running at him. Ugh.
I don't know. The thing is, okay, as soon as Black Dragons realized that they just needed to put the pressure on, because time was becoming their big factor with how long it took in, and that was the game the NXT were playing, it was the right decision. Until it just fell to bits. And it's the same criticisms we levied against ENX team's approach, entirely mirrored towards Black Dragons of a, what was that? And there's panic, there's time, there's all these things that come into it, but you know, I think it's on the operating manual when you're up against the shotgunners to just not run immediately into it as a group. Sort of where they do their best.
Yeah.
That's why.
Even the trade, it was a trade as well on the last kill.
Oh yeah.
And the defenders just win.
On LAN at that situation, you know, there's so much that sort of runs into the numbers there, and it's just...
I I have noticed though, just in general in CJX, I've seen a lot more trades that happen as well. I don't even if you've experienced playing it. I feel as though trades are a lot more frequent in this game. Don't know what it is. Maybe it's just better registration. I don't know. But I see a lot more of them.
ENX team, they get themselves the recoup of the round that should have been theirs a long time ago and taken this one back from Black Dragons, and they had decent ideas. They just got a very lucky end towards it. Black Dragons, was it complacency? Was it mistakery? We'll find out now as we push ourselves further on here. The steady control, getting rid of the Goyo canisters early. It's just going to make their life a lot easier here with that Twitch.
Yeah, Twitch being able to move in, destroy a lot of the bits of util in and around the site, of course. Goyo's being the main thing. Rare opens up the first pick. It's not a good start there for ENX, mostly because they're not in a position to get the trade-off as well. But again, it is the Goyo. Util would have already been used, but still, it's a man that you've lost. Also, a little note, this changed. Rappelling around the walls in our cafe. My goodness me, Fluke.
Oh, it's so fun.
What quality of life change.
So fun. And it looks cool, and you feel cool, and isn't that the most important thing about video games?
Feeling cool.
Feeling cool, looking cool, I am cool.
Yeah.
I'm playing video games. They have obviously lost the Goyo at this point. It's a great gun to have, but with the use of the utility as well, it's just been very well counted into it. They've got pressure from the vertical, but utilizing the sledge means that they're playing that dangerous game, dancing against the C4s, and they don't have the pace of swapping between the buck, the gadgetry, or the safety of being rammed, but they do still have the angles, and Rare cuts off the head of Boxera. Now, at what point here is that player that's playing around red going to try and make some motion, or do they expect to find a fight? Sexy Cake does suffer, and that was pressure from it, and instead they're going to rotate their way up towards the top. A 5 versus 2 versus 1 versus 4. As there's a couple of trades, but it doesn't last very long. Black Dragons sort of do what they should have done last round and just lock it out.
Yeah, clinical round, wasn't it, from Black Dragons? That's more like it. Had full control of that round, never looked out of sorts. They had the game plan. Again, they brought on the Twitch, countered the Goyo really well. It gave them a lot more time to work with. They then done the verticality. It helped them out a lot. Was able to push the defenders out of the position. And then, yeah, just picks 1, 2, 3, and then it's a 5v2. Yeah, really tough for ENX. We finally see the timeout from ENX, but...
There's such an irony to this statement. After what we've gone through this game, we do finally see a timeout. You're right.
Hey, look, I mean, it's not...
It's not wrong.
Say it wasn't a team
wrong.
timeout. You think
Not
ENX
wrong.
just said, you know what, stop the show for 20 minutes. We're busy. Stop the show.
We have, and I mean, otherwise you might not use it at all, right? And
Yeah.
should the score be this way? Yeah, I think it's fair. There was a round that should have gone one way, and it was a round that was stolen right back in curious
Look at
fashion.
Flashery, by the way. Look at that card. Love it. That red.
You're a big Rick and Morty skin enthusiast, aren't you?
I've never took them off since they came out. How
Really?
long ago was that?
So
Yeah.
you love the realism of the game.
Indeed.
I love
No,
the
there's
skins.
not.
My
there's
favorite
nothing worse
skins.
than.
Yeah.
No, you
Go
go.
on. No, okay.
No, no,
Happy
no,
life,
after
thank you.
I've opened the door for you.
I love pay to lose skins.
Okay. Oh, like the cheese head from Mosley.
Mozzarella.
Yeah.
Furry smoke. Oh
Okay.
no.
You've cursed this game. This is you. You've
What
started
do you
mentioning-
mean?
You've started mentioning cheese mozzarella mozzie. That's what
Mozzarella.
happens.
You telling me you don't love cheese?
I do. Well, I mean, am I going to sit down and eat a chunk of cheese? Probably not. But if it was on a pizza, yeah.
What about
Yeah,
cheese string?
No.
What?
No, that's just that's.
I
cheese,
would
isn't
have
it?
taken you for a cheese string enthusiast or a baby
No,
bell
no,
enjoyer.
No.
Wow. Never had. What was in your packed lunch as a kid?
Didn't have them. I had school dinners.
School dinners. Okay, that's fair enough. So I bring news.
Hey, you've gathered another bit of lore about me. I've never been asked that. So there's another one. That's good.
I do. I feel like you could ask the talent. I think if if there was like a photo of each member of Talent's generic lunch, you would get a real wild mix from people. Okay, I bring news, friends. We're obviously in another rehost. We will hopefully be back in soon. I think this was just a single player remake.
Yeah, just a drop.
So this should be quicker, touch wood. But we will be back in soon. It is 6-4 at this point. Black Dragons just need one more to push this game over the brink and over the edge and get themselves... Well, I think both teams this early on, it's a bit of a strange one to say, but need the 3 points. ENX to stop the spiraling. And even though this is the best that they've performed, they've had 3 huge people to go against in their opening 3 playdays, and then Black Dragons for just setting themselves up to fight at the top.
Yeah, and I think for Black Dragons, it's getting all 3 points, isn't it? I think that's the important thing. They need just to shut out ENX here and now, because if you look at the standings, for Black Dragons, if they win today, it will then jump them up to 7 points. And don't forget, FaZe have a tough opponent in Furia. They could drop points, so they could, be ahead of FaZe at the end of this playday. So I think for Black Dragons, it is a case of they could be sat in the top 2 positions, just based on how the other fixtures have kind of been laid out.
Now, as that sort of shows, ENX, they've set themselves up for a better performance throughout this. What I'm just going to have a very quick scan over is on my sort of notes and statistics for how this game has sort of cooked itself together. And I made a comment how coming into this on the side of ENX team, nobody had a set positive performance apart from day one Sexy Cake going 7-7. And yeah, they were quick games, but to my stats, and these aren't complete stats because we have missed 2 rounds, unfortunately. So take these with a grain of salt. We're currently sitting in a very similar situation. 4 of the players on the side of ENX are negative on KD. Florio is even, and you might be like, yeah, the other team's winning. It's 6-4, it's close. And even then, usually, you'll still have 1, if not 2 players on the losing team getting themselves in on the gun game. And it's just kind of missing in what is a very competitive gun game region.
Yeah, I think for Brazil, it's always weird because Brazil versus Brazil are always crazy, chaotic. You don't really know where it's going to go. And then if you look at Brazil versus the other, regions wherever they go against them, it's clear cut and dry. Brazil as a region have always struggled against themselves. And whenever I say that, it's not the case of, could ENX go in and by that logic beat a VP? No, I don't think they could. But could I see, an ENX take points off of Fury or FaZe in this region? Yes, I could, because that's just the volatility of this region. It's weird. It's very, very weird to explain it that way, but that's what we've seen throughout the history of this league, is that Brazil, anyone could beat anyone. It really, it's as clear cut as that.
So, back in just a moment. We can see, end of the game. That was cool. It's very dramatic. 6-4, round 11 match point. The bands are still there at the top of the screen. Sometimes they're not loading in properly at the minute. Clash and Azami, the Cuba Barricades, gone for the defense. And now Castle, a mirror of what it was the first time round. The only real shake-up here is that the Ying is banned instead of the Dockerby as the trade. And to be fair, Ying has been used pretty well on some of the pushes where they've utilized it that we've seen from Black Dragons.
Attackers have discovered the location of a bomb.
All right. Into our basement is where we go. Obviously, we have had the other sets of bans. Castle, yeah, makes sense. Of course it does. It's the same bans that ENX went for. In terms of ENX and who they banned on the attacking side, it's the Ying who takes the hit. And we did see a bit of Ying coming in from Black Dragons, of course. So I think it's a fair ban to go for if it is causing you issues. No, she is one of those operators that can change the dynamic of a round. Because there ain't a lot you can really do against her unless you are, of course, Warden.
Quick identity. Oh, and a Twitch drone that has slipped on by. Long time to check your cams there, Florio, and now this will happen. They've obviously read it out to their teammate. Those Goyo canisters getting got so early on. I'm a big Twitch enthusiast, and it's just such a perfect counter to a lot of the holes that people like to do. There's some attention being paid towards the cut window on red, but not from the approach here. Flashtree is obviously going to be able to get those long-range rounds in. Talked about it before, the sort of trade-off of getting the more specific destruction on towards soft, the sledge versus the ram, where you can do it with some safety, because, well, to be fair, there has been, I think, at least 2 C4 kills that have come off the back of ENX. They're not going to test the waters any further. There is a setup that Hornet might be about to run into now down the stairs, as our first engagement is actually going to cut off his rotation, and he takes the option to stand and fight, and it's a mistake to be made, because there's that other point I made, Demo. If the Buck is the one in the situation, they are so set up to pop themselves instantly into setting on towards that gunfight.
Yeah, Buck, again, just really, really strong operator at the moment. I mean, I think the C8 as a whole, as a gun, has just been one of the top guns for the attackers since really it came out, hasn't it? You know, and yeah, you can see, again, verticality working well for Black Dragons now. They start to transition into that kind of midpoint of the map where, yeah, let's get these, let's get all the vertical holes open, let's get the hatches open, let's start rotating into a pretty default take, of course. You need to take out that guy in VIP, though. This is the danger man, same way that we preferenced it whenever Black Dragons were defending down here. It should always be your next step on Cafe, is start looking at these players in these off-site positions.
With a minute on and a 5 versus 4, I mean, I'm not going to really say anything except for the go, because things have gone away from teams before, but they're doing decent groundwork. They have the vertical, they have these angles, and now they can start trying to make their way towards the pressure onto VIP. Florio is still home with 2 Tubero canisters. There's the roll of the Sense Wall. Gorgeous placement there. It's so perfectly played to cover any of the route here on towards white. It buys them this little route through. It slows down what Florio can do, but where is this next engagement? ENX, they've got themselves all around the site itself, and they could react and push up.
Yeah, the key thing is Sexy Cake on the smoke. He needs to be in a position to stop this plant going down, because the drop happens, but immediately, oh, the Sense Wall was not done correctly, and because that, Florio is taking down the player with the diffuser.
Look at the time, 3 versus 2. They don't have the kit. Sexy Cake is very massively hurt, and there's an easy catch onto the dropped and down player. Too little, too late is the story of the round, and we aren't done yet. 6-5. They're still clawing their way through this game at ENX.
Danger Man inside VIP, I mentioned that before. They're almost trying to cheese a way around them, aren't they? Rather than taking the time out to push that guy, we'll be, I want to say, a little bit lazy. You know, we'll just hope that their sense will stop him. Hasn't worked, has it? I'm always a big advocate of you need to take that side of the map, no matter what. Once you take the vertical control and you open up that hatch, there's nowhere that guy's going to go. That guy's trapped there. He will die instead of VIP, and there's really only 1 or 2 positions he can play it, 1 in each corner. So it really shouldn't be too much of an issue for a team who's as well experienced as Black Dragons to know how to deal with that. You know, it felt a little bit lazy, and because of that, it's been punished.
If this goes into overtime, I think that will probably be a bigger blow to Black Dragons in the grand scheme of things. ENX team being able to push themselves towards a fight against the top flight team, I think, is going to be a huge boost, regardless of how it goes, especially on the back of them being on the back foot throughout the game themselves. They sort of have clawed their way back into this. There's a couple of bits we haven't been able to see, but they've just set themselves up for a new bar to try and leapfrog over. Here, Black Dragons, the importance of them not only getting as many full fat points as possible, but especially from the teams at the bottom of the board, that is sometimes and has been the difference maker. You know, you talked to 2 of the people on our desk, and they were both on sometimes the bottom of the board teams that took big moments away from top teams on the fight. And now, well, we'll see if that's another moment that comes together here. They've got themselves the hands-off approach, the roll of the Flores drone. Might be something that gets rid of the utility.
He has to try and dodge his way around all these different operators who can't just shoot the drones as they come down. That's exactly what has happened. It's going to go again, but it just feels as though Black Dragons are maybe just looking for a full 5-man execute onto this top floor, going in through the windows. You know, they're not really bringing in any heavy-hitting operators such as a Grim, for example, or a Capitao that could be used to great effect. Instead, it's just focused around flashbangs and grenades to force these players out of these positions.
Okay, please just don't all throw yourself into the same angle. Thank you. As the Deimos gets the track, the player has dropped out, and now they have the control over the top, but time is once again turning into a bit of a risk and an issue here, as, well, they're just able to push themselves back in. I was going to say they have control, but the position has been fought back into and brought back onto here, and nobody has really been thrown out, stimmed, picked back up. It's great play, and, you know, what are you trying to gain here? What's the caution about, and where's the approach here, Black Dragons? They almost catch the tail of another player, but ENX team are just giving them ghosts and wisps and then moving off.
Yeah, they've used so much util. They've got 2 nades left, and that is it. They still have to deal with box error. Here is the danger man. You know, he's inside a cocktail. They cannot move until that guy is out of there. So they're really struggling. Don't tell me their option is now just trying to hit a backstab. It looks as though maybe it is. He goes up the barbed wire. Is anyone there to respond? The Dopey call will assist him in that. And here we go, the backstab. Oh, it's going to be a trade, it looks like. And somehow Black Dragons have appeared in the 2v2.
I don't know how they've got here, but can they get the end of it? There is a swing and a fight on towards 2 very separated players, but the kit is in absolute no man's land right now, right in the middle of the fight itself, and they only have 20 seconds to try and get things reconvened. It has been collected. They're going to have to go for the cover, the attempt here. Instead of taking the fight itself, they swing in their way on towards the bar side window. They know one's in freezer, and they've got the cross and the plant covered. They spray a couple of bullets, and, well, the rotate from Lumber. 5 seconds left, and there's the kit dropped, and there's the trade out. ENX, though, they push it over, and they have guaranteed themselves a point from this as we hurtle in towards OT.
Oh my. Into OT we go. Is this the longest siege game in history? It could be.
I think we're about 20 minutes short of 2 hours, right?
If we have another tech pause, oh dear, we could be hitting the 2-hour mark. We could be.
That would be the longest, I believe. So we're not going to do that.
The timer's paused at the top. I'm worrying. Uh-oh.
It's a Black Dragon's timeout.
Okay, it's Black Dragon's timeout. Thank goodness. Yeah, Black Dragon's timeout. Looking at that last round, the game plan just didn't work. They attempted to go with 6 nades and the flashbangs. You burn for the utility, but the kicker was the dock, wasn't it? Being able to stim back up that Rooney was still able to, stay alive. You have to get as well, Rooney is a free armor. She can tank nades a lot better than what, obviously, a one armor can. So that was the big benefit, just the positioning there for ENX. He had the right people at the right places at the right time. So yeah, Black Dragons timeout. They've really, I think, dropped the ball. I would have expected to see them close this out in the past 2 rounds, especially with how they played out. Yeah, Black Dragons, it's not good. It's not good. They drop points here today.
I think it's the fairest way, as I said before that round, of if it goes into OT, Black Dragons, regardless how it goes, will be the ones that come off worst, because they are that upstart team, right, that we talked about, we highlight, shaking the sort of top of the tree and saying, we're here and we're going to fight for these positions. Okay, but then if you start dropping towards those teams at the bottom, that's how you end up in the mid-table, right? That's how you end up scrapping here, and they might find themselves off of the top 4 spots because it's such a competitive region by a single point or 2. And those sort of pieced apart games like this one are going to be tough, because truly, if you want to make your mark as a top flight team, the security of taking points from challenger teams and teams that are struggling is that sort of most important meter. ENX team on the other side. What a return to force. As I said at the very start of this, after that first round went away from them, I'm a bit worried that their headspace might get a little bit rocked by that, might get it. And Did it? Hard to say to impossible, but you cannot say that they're in a bad place at the end of this game after they sort of built themselves back in. But with how things have traded out, there's obviously been a preference here for defense, and Demo, ENX team is starting on it.
Changing mags.
They are on the side, which is certainly an optimistic approach for them. And of course, for Black Dragons, the attacks have looked certainly very shaky over the past 2 rounds. We'll see if that timeout has helped them out. In terms of what they're bringing to the table in utility, still self-destruction is there. Sledge and the Buck. However, the Capital makes an appearance. Now, as we just deal with this room going quickly, I'll touch on the Capital, and it's actually be a bait. There's still a guy stage. I don't know. There we go.
Oh,
any
my
more?
word.
Is that it?
I mean,
There's no way he gets away with this.
He's gone, he's dropped. There's a fight that's about to happen on the train window. They're going to rotate some support around, and they're peppering bullets, and he gets a second from it. He's fought his way out, chased by a hot drone, and instead of giving the ground away, Flastry does find Angels and keeps the pressure on. But this is a 1 versus 1. If this goes away from a surprise player, no, it's not. It's a 2 versus 1. But they're still worried because they don't really know where he is. He's given the game away. We're going to hear a skeleton key in a second. He slips himself further and further away. But the time, the utility, the focus on a site that requires a lot last time round. At this point, they had all of their vertical work done. Now it's a 3 versus 2, sure. But they have all of their setup to go. And, well, they're missing out some of their soft, missing out Muzi and Hornet, who has been a driving force of their kills.
What a chaotic start. Just a simple roam bait has netted a lot of kills inside the first opening half. Now we're in different territory, because usually whenever we had seen this kitchen bomb site play out, it is, from the 5v5 position. But now we're dealing with the attackers in a 2v3, with having very little vertical work done, not having a massive amount of utility left. They still have the Capital bolts. That's the main thing that they have on their side. But they did lose nades, for example, so maybe the Goyo canisters could be a bit of an issue if they can't nade them off.
Holding on with a narrow angle, but absolutely pinched out of position here, leaving just Florio. We've seen a smoke pull off magic in this moment before, and look at the timer, Demo. He just has to get the kit. The flashes come out, but he pushes on, gets one, goes towards the breach, and that smoke won't be in the right position, and they're ready for it.
Did he not smoke where the planter was? Was the planter not about to die to that smoke? No, or am I got that completely wrong?
I thought the planter drove forward, but that might have been my mistake.
He planted in the middle of the smoke, which was then smoked by the smoke grenade. From the smoke.
We're gonna have to roll the footage back on that one, Demo.
VAR.
Roll it up. I mean, if you're right, tragic. I thought that they had thought about that.
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know.
I don't know, but I mean, I saw at least one outline drive, but it's always a bit hard to tell
Attackers need to locate
in those chaotic moments with a lot going on. With the outline system and on a home broadcast, we do our best in 1,000,000-degree heat.
We are in Brazil.
I
We are there.
wish.
Attackers have discovered
I
the
love
location of a
being in
bomb.
Brazil. 6 to 7. That is Black Dragons doing what, they've struggled to do here, which is take attacks on towards the defense. They've set themselves up super well for pushing this over in towards the end. How close it was, someone is finding out. Hey, what a nice looking gun skin that is. Are you rolling the VOD back?
Well, it's, I won't know for like another 2 minutes at least.
That's true, that's true.
If not more, so I
The
can't
game
do
might
much
be
about
done
that, but
by then.
game will be done.
We
I'll
have
get
a
my
blitz
answer at the end.
on the board this time
We
around.
do. Yep. Obviously the bans, if you don't know, we didn't touch on last round. Bans remain from what you did in your opening half. So as you can see, same bans that ENX have to deal with is only really having either the Blitz shield or having the Fuse shield, as their two form of operators with the shields, of course. They've opted for the Blitz. Now, the thing is with Blitz and Cafe, doesn't have a lot of great areas to really push in from unless you're dealing with kitchen downstairs, because it's great at dealing with VIP, for example. But whenever you're dealing with the top floor and mid floors, the issue is it's too open of a layout. Blitz is great in those close quarter battles. He's not great whenever he kind of has to expose himself from more than really 2 angles, and that's what you will find on this bomb site. So I think Sexy Cake trying to make it work will be very difficult for him, but if he just so happens to get into the right position, I don't know, like White Stairs, for example, he can control that area really, really well.
Ooh, there is a temptation for a fight here, but they're going to just sort of walk into it. I thought they were a little bit more aware of the player's position there, but maybe not, and they're lucky to escape with not as much damage. As the stress and the pressure comes out over the top, the Deimos track, maybe that's the awareness of why they wanted to pull themselves away. They felt the pressure here cooking itself across the top. A minute 10, and they are in above, but it's tentative, and even with the IQ, they're still not fully locked in towards that camera on the back, underneath the light itself, and if this goes untested, with the chance of them actually finding it, that's going to be a huge mistake here from the side of the IQ. Still angles being opened up. They don't really have anything direct for the soft. They're having to do this with a great gun for engagements instead, Demo. And is this going to cost them just the time effort of not bringing any proper soft?
They could do. I'm just worried about really what they have left. 40 seconds. There's still Goyo canisters and smokes that they have to go through. So the attackers, it's a time management issue for them. You hear the Goyo canister will be popped, and they're attempting to force their way in through Train now, and it has netted them a kill, so maybe they're looking to go for a different approach and maybe look towards Train as their option. But based on where Florio is with the diffuser, it still leads me to believe that they're looking for a default plan.
I mean, 15 seconds, and they're just going to have to take some of this fire damage. They've got themselves the vertical control, but a single C4 of situation of any technology like that with the gas coming over the top, it's going to force them further and deeper into the site. They've just got to take fights. Hornet swings around. Boxera gets a trade out, but Florio's going for the plant, and here's the rotate and the route round the back. Muzi. All that is left in a post-plant 1 versus 3 situation here. ENX learnt their lessons, had their watches, and went for the cover. And we are going the distance all the way to the end here. Demo, would you have predicted this at the start?
Nope, I would not. Nope. Then 2 hours ago,
2 hours ago,
we started this game, did I think we'd still be going? No, of course not. Yeah, that time ENX had learned. Black Dragons, I believe, whenever they had previously defended that site, they went for kind of like a light retake where they attempted to flank above. That time didn't work. ENX, they were on top of it. There was 1 kill that happened from the flank and then immediately was traded off. So ENX did a lot better at controlling the retake coming in from Black Dragon. So yeah, get that diffuser around. That is the main thing. They had to win some big gunfights, albeit, but hey, they won them. They sure did.
I think that's the sort of thing, is this reactivity, it wasn't anywhere, really, at the start of the game from this team. When ENX were putting their attacks together, obviously they'd made mistakes, they'd been caught out before in similar situations, and they just seem to have keenly turned on an awareness as this game has gone on and on and on. And, I sort of repeat all the lessons that I've said before and all the things about who would this benefit and blah, 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 but you have to give credit for this team for sort of putting their foot down and digging their claws and their heels in and refusing to let this one against Black Dragon slip away from them. Again, the frustration for the side of Black Dragons here of this game has gotten to this point.
Yeah.
It's going to be a big one in bouncing into it to get tomorrow.
I've checked the VAR on the last round.
Yep.
Well, not last round, the round before. And he did, in fact, run forward. I actually see the red ping that threw me off, because there's a red ping right where the smoke grenade went off. But yeah, actually, it's kind of like, it's a 2-second delay, isn't it? So you can just see him just kind of run past. But again, it's always difficult whenever there's a lot going on.
From our perspective as well, we can make these judgments. There's no way the player would really know that without the camera directly onto that position, and chances are there isn't one. So they would have made the play regardless, I think. But 7-7. And it's been quite late, these opening engagements and these later rounds as well. Teams are getting a lot of time to set themselves up here and set for some idea of success. Back towards the top floor. It's probably going to be even longer before we get ourselves inside here. And they've got the Deimos and the Lion. They're still going for a very active hunt down of these players. They want the gunfight against ENX team. They're not going to sort of set themselves up with the Nomad and the air jabs as ENX have done against Black Dragons and sort of trust what's on their back. They want and want and want for bloodshed, but it's just not being offered to them here, Demo.
Yeah, it's not. If you look towards the top floor now, it should be pretty easy for Black Dragons. There's no Clash, there's no Azami, there's no Castle. It's three very strong operators for dealing with Piano. So that should save them a lot of time and a lot of utility right from the get-go. And really, once you lose that Piano for the defense, it does feel as though the bomb site becomes extremely smaller. That really makes you feel claustrophobic once you lose that big opening of Piano. But again, for ENX, based on their lineup, they still got 2 C4s, which they could maybe go for some light rotates downstairs and achieve some C4s from below. But they're actually trying to contest the players on the window, and I mean, Nigel gets out of there. Big Nige, out of dodge. But really, where does he fall back onto? Everyone else, you know, now they're sat on top of each other over towards flanks. There's 3 players in this position. This is the issue with giving up that Piano control.
Ooh. Almost the first engagement, but he's found at the bottom of the stairs, but it's traded out almost immediately here, and we are starting to explode in the end. A bit of a scrappy dive across the window, and that is a missed moment here. They escape with the sliver of health that they have to their name, but Nigel's been able to make it work before, all the way up, and they turn away and second-guess themselves, but lock it in at the end. There is almost one more for the tally. It is just one player standing. Angels here for the hope of ENX to be able to claim their first win, but it's not theirs to take. Black Dragons finally put this game to bed, push it over into a max overtime win almost 2 hours after we started. But the heat has been felt all around because ENX put up such a big show and a fight around it, Demo.